So it's been years and years, well over a decade, in fact, going on 15 years, that I've wanted to do a Bion pack video. And so I'll just talk a little bit about the Bion packs. You can read about them in the Orgone Accumulator Handbook by James DeMeo, in the section on draw buckets, which are similar to cloudbusters, and other ways for dealing with ORANUR, toxic electromagnetic radiation. So the problem with the Orgone accumulator is you don't want to have one near a 5G cell phone tower. You don't want to have one near a microwave oven. You don't want to have one within 100 miles of a nuclear power plant. The Orgone accumulators can be very dangerous if they're irradiated improperly, and they have to be dismantled. And in fact, Wilhelm Reich himself went to great measures to bury the dismantled pieces for many years. And you can read about that in Wilhelm Reich's selected writings, the ORANUR Experiment first report. So you just watched me flip the Bion pack over there. And when they come out of the freezer, you shock them with a rapid boil, and the water will stop boiling, and then you bring it back to a rapid boil, flip it over, boil it, and 5 or 10, 15 minutes, give or take, and then flip it. So I brought the water to a boil. I flipped it once, let it rolling boil for 10 or 15 minutes, and then I flipped it again. So you just saw me flip it. And now I could let it go for another 5 or 10, 15 minutes. And this one particularly, it differs from the directions in the Orgone Accumulator Handbook. The book says to use mud or clay, sand, very fine rocks, tiny pebbles or gravel, but really sand is best, or clay, mud. And that's according to the book. You read it for yourself. Don't quote me, quote the book. I could be mistaken. But anyway, pretty close. So what I've used is herbal tea. So this is basically a t-shirt full of herbal tea. It's all there's in there. Maybe some white tea, maybe some green tea. But mostly it's varieties of herbal tea. And if I really wanted to do a controlled experiment, I would have kept track of what kind of tea is in there. Echinacea, lemongrass, lavender. There's all kinds of stuff. So for the first few times you use it, there's some aromatherapeutic qualities to it. It'll smell like all the herbal teas, rich, flowery smells. But only the first few times. This is like the third or fourth time I boiled it, and it really starts to smell like overcooked tea leaves. So I've had people complain about the smell before the Bion packs, because you're just boiling and boiling. And then you freeze it, and then all you do is boil it again. I'm going to get a few hours use out of this. So my experience, the book, I think, says they work as long as they stay wet. Because I'm using food stuff, I can give you the New York State guidelines is by time, as if you can keep it out for 4 hours, and then if you were going to eat it, you discard it. In this case, you can freeze it again, because you're not going to eat it. You're not going to drink the water. At least I wouldn't recommend it. Some people have experimented with drinking Bion water. I recommend you research that for yourself. And remember that they're using sand. They're boiling sand. And this is herbal tea. It can stain your clothes. You can see how the pot, some of it is boiled over and stained, so it can leave a mess to clean up if you're not careful. So 4 hours. I was giving it 8 to 12 hours, but especially if you want to avoid any smell, like I've given these to people and said, got to go back in the freezer within 6 to 8 hours, 10 or 12 at the most. And they'll leave it in a dark closet in the corner for 3 days and then wonder why it gets moldy. Well, if you leave any soggy, wet t-shirt in the corner, and that's basically what it is. It's a white t-shirt, and I froze all my tea bags as I drank the tea. And when I got enough of them together, I stuffed them in a shirt and tied it closed and boiled it again from frozen, and then I froze it, and then next day I boiled it. So I think this is day 4 that I've used it now. So it doesn't really have that nice fresh flowery smell anymore. But so yeah, the aromatherapy is nice at first, but it is expensive. Remember, all this tea, this big bag of tea bags, like well over 100 tea bags in there probably. And so when you're buying these fancy herbal teas, you're getting like a dozen or maybe 15 or 16 bags for, anywhere from $5 to $8 or $9 for a box of the, individually wrapped tea bags, herbal tea, depending on what you're getting. I try to use organic, all that stuff. And I use different brands that are more medicinal quality or cut different parts of the plant. I have different mints. There's field mint, spearmint, peppermint. You know what I mean? So there's several different kinds of mint in there. And be creative and save your money. And cut down on cigarette smoking or whatever your vices are and invest it in your health. So you're drinking the tea, and then instead of throwing the tea bag out, you throw it in the freezer. And when you get enough of them accumulated, you got enough to make a Bion pack. And so it works as a poultice. Basically, I had some fractured ribs I used these on. I was told it was going to take 6 months to heal, and then I would be on pain medication for 3 years. I never took any pain meds, and my ribs healed in 5 weeks. Really, rather 3 weeks. After 3 weeks, there was no pain. After 5 weeks, I went back to work. They were still tender for a total of 8 weeks after they were broken. But so basically, yeah, I healed 4 fractured ribs in 3 weeks. Took an extra couple of weeks to recoup and go back to work. And they were still tender, but there was no pain after 3 weeks. And all I used was Bion packs. I kept them in rotation. So I was using them 24 hours a day, but I would, I'd rotate, have one for 10 hours. After 5 or 6 hours, 8 hours, I'd make another one. And then I would use the new one on top of the old one. They're really hot when they come out of the boiling water. Obviously, they're scalding hot. So you got to give them time to cool down. And that's how I would keep them in rotation as well. The hot one was cooling down. I would begin removing, again, just as a poultice, like a wrap. So I kept it wrapped on my ribs with bandages. I get the 6-inch gauze bandages, and you can use it different ways. You can use it as a compress, like a heat compress, but again, it works even after it cools down. And the principle is pulsation, expansion and contraction. As water freezes, it expands, and then as it thaws, it begins to expand again. It'll contract until 4 degrees centigrade, 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and then it'll start to expand again. So you're inducing pulsation with this freeze and thaw process, and the rapid boil is just basically inducing more pulsation, expansion and contraction. And I have a suspicion that turbulence has something to do with it. It's not in any of the literature I've read from Orgone, but in the ether physics circles, you'll find more information on turbulence and how it plays a role in living in biophysical processes, life processes. So anyway, you can do different experiments with these. Obviously, more rigorous controls. I just use these casually. You can look at this stuff under a microscope. You're boiling this stuff. Nothing should be alive in there. But I guarantee if you take some of this Bion water or some of the tea material from the inside and look at this stuff under a microscope, and you'll find it is very alive. There are such things as extremophiles that live in high temperature water, around volcanic vents, under the ocean. And there's just a lot we don't know, and there's a lot of censorship. You definitely want to look into terrain theory, Antoine Bechamp. Again, the Bion packs are Wilhelm Reich's invention, and you can find out more information, especially from James DeMeo, on them. But a lot of Reich's findings are directly tied to Antoine Bechamp on the biological side. Again, Orgone is biophysics. So Wilhelm Reich's physics are more related to the ether, and his biology is more related to terrain theory. But again, Orgone is unifying biology and physics. So you can also do field experiments then. You get an Orgone meter. Again, James DeMeo sells it from his Natural Energy Works website, And you can look up, I think it's in the cancer biopathy, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the book in front of me. I can't look up what page number it is. But the circuit for how to build an orgone meter, the schematic, it's published. So, I mean, James DeMeo sells them, but if you're knowledgeable enough, you can build your own. And you can test different things. I suspect that my Bion packs are stronger with the tea. A number of different reasons. I would suspect they give off more orgone energy. The tea is porous, more porous than sand. Disintegrates faster. It has a greater surface area, so greater rate of disintegration. And it's also more elastic. It will expand and contract. It will pulsate more than the sand. That is my suspicion. I have not put any of this to any rigorous tests. But like I said, I've been wanting to do a Bion pack video for a long time. So now this has been boiling on this side for about 10 minutes, and it's about time for me to take it out. And I'm going to let it cool down, and then I'll probably apply it to my face and or somewhere else, or I might just let it sit and kind of charge up the room. I've been warned, be careful about your thyroid. A lot of orgonomy, again, has to do with contactfulness, sensory awareness, getting in touch with what you feel. So I'm a smoker. My throat just started bothering me. It might be because I've been smoking too much. It might be the thyroid is right in the neck there. And so that does play a role in regulating energy metabolism. And I'm standing next to this really highly charged Bion pack. Now, if you read Wilhelm Reich, I think it's in People in Trouble. I forget which book it's in. But when he was doing his initial Bion experiments, he was getting conjunctivitis. It's like pink eye, basically. It's swelling of the eyes and pussy eyes. And he related it to looking through the microscope too much. Because he was staring at these Bion packs through the microscope. And he basically he overcharged his eyes. Again, what this does is induce swelling. You induce swelling, and then the body will naturally contract, and what you've induced is pulsation then. Induce swelling, and you get pulsation. That's basically it. Okay. Thanks for watching. Bye.